Let's remember, there's a lot more to race for here than just getting into the championship for. There are a lot of different agendas at this point in the season that you have to remember. And you have to remember these as a driver, a crew chief, and a team owner.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go on. Keep on flying. What a race! California's Kevin Harvick does it. Straight making right there. You're the man.
Welcome to Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour, presented by NASCAR on Box. I'm Kevin Harvick. She's Kaitlyn Vincie. He's
Mr. Rogers.
Smith. Mr. Rogers.
So Rhonda, our hair and makeup, said he looked like Mr. Rogers today.
Yeah.
You know?
It's fall time and the weather's beautiful, and now I can bust out the cardigan.
If people,
No, I am hot, but not. I'm hot physically, but not temperature wise.
if people are only listening, he's wearing a chunky sweater, a flannel.
Yeah,
Yeah, the blue isn't Mr. Rogers wear blue?
he wears blue.
Yeah, so
I love Mr. Rogers.
I mean, who doesn't? Right?
He's a good guy.
That's a good guy to channel.
Good guy channel.
Well, looking sharp, and I like your shoes today, by the way.
Yeah, I just went and got a fresh pair.
Did you?
I did.
So,
Those are new?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
hang on,
I finally just got a pair of Pandas for the track. And I like them, so I just got several.
Delana, I was with Delana and Piper at the Checkers game this weekend, and she's like, I swear to God, every other day is something new I'm getting charged for, and there's a new pair of shoes here, and it's all your fault. Like, she was blaming me.
Oh,
It's your fault. And
yeah.
They're like, why do you have so many pairs of new shoes? I said, well, it's kind of been a priority to just wear new shoes on every episode just to make sure that Mama knows that I'm trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're definitely trying, looking sharp.
Yeah.
Guys, it's episode 67, if you can believe that, of Happy Hour. We have plenty to discuss today, of course. We encourage all of the closers to keep subscribing on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a 5-star review. And we're going to recap Vegas, which was pretty interesting, I will say.
Spicy.
A little spicy. Preview Homestead. We have your sips as well. But I want to do our usual, how everyone's weekend was. I know you were... You're already laughing. You were out in Vegas. Tell us about it.
Yeah. We went to Vegas Wednesday morning, and I was excited about my late model race for the weekend. So I got to run my first Cars Tour West event. And Friday morning, I got deathly sick.
That's horrible.
And it was probably the most miserable I've ever been in a race car in my whole career.
That's
My
saying
career's
something, I
over.
bet.
Yeah.
But my second career here. I don't know what we got, but it wiped everybody out. Keelan had it in the middle of the week, and by the time we got to the racetrack, everybody on the team had it. I had it, and unfortunately, the whole event is built around me.
Right.
Yeah.
And what we're doing. You can't just say, hey, I'm sick
Hey,
today.
I'm not showing up.
You know?
Yeah.
So the last 40 laps, I'm like burping up puke, trying to just survive. I got spun out in the middle of the race.
So you didn't pull a Tyler Reddick where you just let it go?
No, I couldn't let it go. Man, I just couldn't do it. I
couldn't.
probably would have felt better if I would have just done it.
Can't even
Guaranteed.
imagine.
It would've
And
smelled, but then it
and
would've
so
smelled.
after the race, I got out of the car. Stuart Tony came, and so he was there, and he comes up in the lounge, and I laid on the couch in the lounge the whole freaking day. Once it got to about lunchtime, and I just laid there. My stomach hurt terribly bad, and I'm curled up in a ball. And he comes up after the race. You all right, bud?
Yeah,
You know,
no.
Yeah, yeah. All right, bud.
You all right, bud? And I kind of got myself into the fetal position on the couch, and then I got up and I walked to the car and I laid in the back seat and drove home, and then we flew home the next day. But we had a good time. It was great.
Yeah. Top
It sounds
five.
great, doesn't
Besides that, it sounds great. Yeah.
it? We had a good event. We finished fourth and wound up running okay and had a good week and had fun with it, but didn't feel great.
You feel better now?
I feel
You
better
get to,
now.
yeah, you seem
Yeah.
perfectly okay.
Yeah, I spent
That's
2 days
good.
in bed. So
Wow. I can't imagine having to do that job when you're sick. That
Well,
just seems
you
miserable.
just don't have a choice. And then you have all those kids there that are
looking up to
looking
you.
up to you like, hey,
I want
what,
to talk to you after.
how you going to handle this, buddy?
autographs.
I didn't do the autograph thing.
'Cause you
We
didn't
had
wanna
this
get other
whole pit
people
party
sick.
and everything planned afterwards. I couldn't
do it.
stand up
That's fair.
because my stomach hurt so bad.
Wow.
So Keelan was out signing autographs, and every time people, so he would bring everybody's stuff in, and I would sign them on the couch
Right.
while
Then
I
he'd
was
take
laying
them
there,
back.
and he'd take them back. That
Attaboy, Keelan.
That's a team effort right
was
there.
a
I
team
like
effort.
that.
That was a
Very
team
good.
effort.
I have a fun story for you guys.
Oh,
This
boy.
is interesting. So I went out to dinner the other night and I stopped at a gas station on the way home, and I was paying in the gas station. I'm about to leave, and I noticed there were 3 cops standing in the gas station just kind of talking. I go to leave and I hear one of them go, "Miss Vincie." And I'm like, I turn around And they're like, hey, you going to do an episode about the disqualification on Happy Hour? And I go, well, we'll probably talk about it a little bit, but we are moving on. And then they proceed to tell me how much they love the show. I don't know who you guys are, but we appreciate the law enforcement watching Happy Hour. That we're fans of the show and fans of Kevin. That's awesome.
I appreciate the law enforcement giving Caitlyn hell because
I
know she was scared.
She was
scared as shit.
You walk into the room and Kaitlyn gets like, oh. And I can't imagine the police officer saying, Miss Vincie.
And I was like, oh, what did I do? I don't think I was speeding. I'm not doing anything wrong right now. What
and they know my name.
To get in trouble? They know my name.
Oh,
it was a pleasant surprise.
Love
yeah.
it.
You still know who's a fan of Happy Hour. I love that.
I think everyone's a fan except the F1 fans. I keep getting notifications. They're still mad about us talking about Kyle Larson.
Still?
They still tore up about it.
Really?
It's great.
It does consistently keep popping up. More people like, what? I can't believe you said that.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
All right.
This weekend.
Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, Leclerc won.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Ferraris won.
Yep. The old Ferraris. There you go. Okay, guys, let's talk about our winners over on the NASCAR side, because what a turn of events. You know, obviously last week when we did our show, there were still some unknowns about the 48 team, whether or not they were in the playoffs or not. We now, of course, know that they are no longer in the hunt. Joey Logano moves in. And what does he do? He goes out and wins this past weekend at Las Vegas. You're shaking your head. I know you already spoke to him this morning for Victory Lap. You can catch that already with Kevin. But what all did he have to say, and what's your takeaway from the win?
Well, I was just very curious as to all of his emotions and everything that he's gone through over the last week. We've heard him document that as he led up to the race. But now you've won, and it's like I told Joey, and he agreed with me. You've won with a 5th to 10th place car. I feel like 5th is generous, probably more like a 6th to 10th or 8th to 12th place car. But that's really all it takes. You have to put yourself in a position to be able to capitalize on the moments. And in this particular race, the moments were just circumstances happening, people shooting themselves in the foot with mistakes. But we've seen that all year. And I think that's really how this 22 team has survived. They put themselves in a position to make a charge at the end from a fuel mileage standpoint to be able to run further than the guys that they were racing and put themselves in victory lane. So, I think from Joey's standpoint, when you look back at the first Phoenix, they probably need 2 weeks to get prepared. They were really bad at the first Phoenix race, and I don't expect them to go back and be like that again. They've obviously at the beginning of the year, we're working through some things with the new Ford Mustang and had a lot of work to do. But, these guys have let Joey Logano hang around. And now with that experience of Paul Wolfe and Joey and these guys being there before, now they have extra time to work on Phoenix. Mm-hmm. We heard him talk about planning the logistics and everything out already starting this morning. And that's a big deal. When you start talking about Phoenix and you start talking about the people who want to show up at the race in case you win the championship and be there to support. You've got more sponsors, more friends, more family, more people that show up to this race. And giving these guys time to just have everything planned out is dangerous because they might have been a 8th to 12th place car this week and might not have had the fastest car. But when you give a team like that the chance to be able to work out the details that they need to work out for one particular race, they become more dangerous. But I still don't know that they'll have the fastest car. Right. But I don't know that they need the fastest car.
I don't know if they need the fastest car. It's kind of like if you give Bill Belichick or Andy Reid a bye week to prepare for a team, they usually come out and are firing on all cylinders. Ryan Blaney is the best teammate that I've ever seen. I gotta say,
this is how quickly we get a Ryan Blaney.
Well, I got you because they wreck early. And they hang in, and then they're fast enough to be around. I don't think that was the intent to be there, but when they got there, and it was like, oh, he can help. Yeah, he can help. I can help Team Penske. Cool. Mm-hmm. And he just keeps pushing the 99, keeps pushing the 22, and eventually they push him by the 99. And even if the 20 got there, I don't know if he would have had anywhere to go because Ryan was going to still run on the top lane. So that helped. The way that Team Penske operates as a whole is so important to their success, and also at Phoenix. Typically, they haven't been very good in the spring race, but in the fall race, the last couple of years, when they needed to, they've shown up full force.
This will be Joey's 6th appearance to the championship four. I saw where he said Paul Wolfe has a new nickname. Did you see that? Big Ball Paul.
Big Ball Paul.
Hey, you got to make the big calls. And in these scenarios where you got to make a decision, right? And so many of these crew chiefs that haven't been in that position like Paul Wolf has to call these championship
Gutsy
style
things, yeah.
moments and say, hey, we're gonna ride this out. And they made the call to run the fuel mileage out. They know what they needed to do on the fuel mileage. And when you get that that confidence to be able to say, this is what we're going to do, and you just do it. But we saw him win at St. Louis this year with the things that his teammate did with that style of racing and fuel mileage and all the things that come with being able to put yourself in a position to make those calls is one thing, but to be able to make the gutsy calls, it seems like the Penske organization can turn those moments into wins and win in the moments when they're not supposed to. And so it's just these crazy scenarios that play out, but they seem to be in those scenarios a lot and capitalize on them more than most.
I think they're playing with house money.
House money.
So I think it's easier to, maybe not easier, but it feels like, well, no one expects us to be here. If we can just like take a shot and rattle this whole thing anyway, who cares? And if we don't make it, we weren't supposed to be here anyway.
So Mamba, Kevin, and I have a text chain. Sometimes we'll talk during the race about things. I no sooner sent that I bet the competition is not happy to see Joey advance to the Champ 4. Kevin immediately sent another one that said, I want to be there to race against him. Again, this is the difference between a media person and a real competitor over here.
Yeah, well, I think when you look at it from a competitor standpoint, you want to race against the guys that you think you can beat.
Right.
And I think that from a sheer speed standpoint, I think that they probably, if you were the 5 or the 24 or the 20, you feel like you can probably outspeed the 22.
Right.
If you don't screw it all up.
You don't screw it all up.
And because those guys aren't going to make as many mistakes as the other guys, it seems at this point.
And the 22, like on the other side, I don't want to race him for a championship because if I'm door to door with him, he's one of those guys that's.
Well, he's got a lot of experience.
He's going to really put you in the
He's going to
bind.
be aggressive and he's going to do what he has to do, but he's got the experience and he knows how to make it difficult on you. He if you give Joey Logano the lead at Phoenix, he's going to be extremely difficult to pass when you're racing him, not only for a win, but for a championship. And those guys they're just bulldogs. Yeah. And Logano has learned how to take that, that really aggressive style of racing and be defensive with it, but they've become very efficient with being smart and able to finish races and capitalize on moments, and that's really what you have to have when you don't have the fastest car. Yeah, you got to be able to figure out a way to win in a different way, and these guys have done that. I'm
interested to see how much they'll be in the way, how much they're going to affect Homestead and Martinsville. Like I know they're going to put all their effort really to Phoenix, but if they're fast enough to be in the mix, like. He can race everyone different and really affect some stuff. So we'll see how that works.
I don't know that they'll have. I don't even know that they'll. I think they'll be average at Homestead. That would be my guess.
So on the receiving end of this also is Christopher Bell, who had pretty much a flawless day, did everything he was supposed to do, collected a lot of points, comes up short, basically saying after the race, you're never safe in this deal. Nothing is ever guaranteed. The disappointment was very visible there for first.
Well, when you have a day like that with a car that is that fast, and you don't capitalize on it. I've been in that position a number of times when you don't capitalize on a car that you know is the best car in the field. And you finish second in a fuel mileage race, there's not much more that's much more aggravating. Yeah. And for Bell, they know that nothing's given in these moments, and next week could be a total disaster. I mean, when you look at the 5 car, last week total dominant, do everything everything that you're supposed to do right. This week, I mean, it looked like they hadn't raced very much. Coming down pit road and making all those mistakes and everything that happened. But that's how quick this can all turn, because there's so much pressure on these guys, and it's such a small margin of error that one mistake can turn into 3. Yep. And when it seems like it just compounds as it goes. But when you're in that position that Christopher Bell was in this week, and you just go out there and totally kick everybody's butt, and then you come home second, there's not much that feels worse. And I think for him, he knows, just like he knows that it's important to know that you have a fast car. It's important to know that when you don't capitalize on those scenarios, you might not get another chance.
This didn't really come into play, but the pit stall selection that Christopher Bell had, you know, he didn't take the number one pit stall, and people were kind of wondering why. What do you make of that whole thing?
Well, I think this is a flaw in the NASCAR system. You know, I think that, and we've talked about this for years with NASCAR, that speed line from the end of the first occupied box should be the same distance at every track, so that the pole qualifying car that picks that first pit stall has an advantage. Otherwise, you know, you don't really ever, you don't gain anything out of having an advantage. But you go to some tracks like Charlotte, where you barely have to even get going out of your stall to get past the first timing line. They need to standardize the timing line from the end of the first occupied stall, because what happens is when you go to a place like Vegas, when you get out of that first pit box, if you have a green flag pit stop, and I guess it would be like this at Charlotte and other places too, they're not going to pick that first pit stall where you go to places where you know you're going to have green flag pit stops. Right. Because like at Vegas, you're not going to get out of the pit stall at full speed. And if you don't have that advantage under caution where you could just get the car going and gain a few spots, then they're not going to pick the first pit stall. Right. So they picked stall 6 so that they could get as much time on pit road as they could and be at full speed when they got to the last yellow line, so that under green flag pit stops, you could keep going. But I really wish that NASCAR would standardize the length of the distance from the first occupied box to or the last occupied box to the timing line, so that it was the same at every racetrack, so that it was fair from one week to the next to what the pole sitter gets to take advantage of. Yeah.
So you picked Christopher Bell to win. I'm sorry, my friend. You were
you were so close.
Yeah, but what'd you make of his day?
I'm sure you guys were just gutted for me that I couldn't come in here and let you know. Yeah, no, I mean, he was dominant. Like I think we all thought he was going to be really good.
We all knew
he was going to be very good. That's why I picked him, because
that's right.
And you know, he sat on the pole, won the stages, no big deal. And he has one of the best pit crews on pit road. But what was impressive to me was almost coming around, almost a full lap behind, and driving so hard to get all the way back past the 99 and without Blaney pushing Logano. I don't know if Logano necessarily, they might all be there in a mix together. Like they might have been 3 wide coming to the start-finish line because they were all so close anyway. So for him to have that much speed and just driving his guts out to get there, I thought that was one of the more impressive drives of the year, even though he came up a little short. And then he was really upset. And I kind of like that part because we don't get that from Christopher Bell very much.
Yeah.
So hearing that he was fired up about not getting there, and then his interview after, he was even visibly fired up.
Yeah, does he normally say the F word on the radio?
I don't think I've ever heard him cuss before. I know he's never drank before. So the fact that,
really?
You know, usually those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So you mentioned the pit crew of Christopher Bell being really strong. On the flip side of that, Kyle Larson's. I want to take a deeper dive into what happened there with the 5 team, because this is not pretty characteristic of what we see of them. Well, first they had a piece of aluminum in the nose. That was the first thing that kind of happened to them. Then you see it here if you're watching along with us on YouTube. Just a collection of errors. They thought one of the tires wasn't tight, but it actually was. And then they just failed to change the left rear. So had to come back down, change again. But this was, I don't even know how many seconds this pit stop was, but it was a costly mistake.
It was like 20 seconds more than I think a normal one. So it was almost 30 seconds. Now,
and then he had to make another one.
So, and the fact that he fought back, like that's crazy. But so he, in this situation, I'm glad, I think I'd be glad that they did what they did a little bit, for the sheer fact of if you're suspended, those races that those guys are gone, that could have really.
Well, we saw the 11 do the same thing. They had a loose wheel, and he got like 3 or 4 stalls down, and Gabehart had him back up and come back to the pit stall because they knew that the wheel was loose. And I think in this scenario, Cliff Daniels and his team, like you're saying, did a great job, because you can't have the wheels fall off.
If it falls off and you lose your I mean, the pit crew guys we talk about, Kevin, they're like as important as any other piece in this car. Like if you don't have your A1 guys,
that's right,
and the playoff time, that could be detrimental.
Well, if this is Phoenix, you probably just lost your race if you're in the championship hunt.
And I think when you look at these mistakes on pit road, we've seen it for years now, and we've seen it a lot this year with the teams, and we've seen it out of this group. The wheel fell off at Texas.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
sounds right.
I think it was Texas. But it's happened with everybody's crew because you're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
And you have to drop the jack, and you have to have the expectation that the tire changers have done it all precisely, and the timing of all that stuff. And it just didn't all sync up right there for them, and it just caused a pretty major error there and put them way behind.
Yep.
Had a great race with Ty Gibbs.
Yeah, caught a break.
For the lucky dog.
Yeah, for the
there.
lucky dog.
Both of them. Ty Gibbs. Another mistake on pit road speeding. He and Ross Chastain speeding, coming under green
I feel like
right
Ty's
there.
had a lot of those this year.
Yeah, can't beat yourself.
Can't beat yourself.
They have definitely beat themselves.
So Kyle Larson, 35 points still above the line. Two teams that a week ago we were singing their praises was Larson and Tyler Reddick, who fought tooth and nail to advance to this round. This week, though, totally different situation for Tyler Reddick. We saw him win the stage, but then he was involved in an incident with Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott. I want to take a look at this because Tyler Reddick's car actually flipping. What did you see here as this was unfolding with these guys?
Well, I think the unique scenario, the exit of turn 4 at Kansas and Las Vegas are very similar, and I think there's a couple things that could have happened here. I think that the 19 car probably got tight, and when these cars get tight and they get close to each other, the door right there, you see. I bet the 19 was completely out of the gas. You saw the flames come out of the pipe, but the car will continue to go up the racetrack into the 9. The 9 knew he was in trouble. You saw him lifting because he knew the 45 was out there, and the 45 had no idea that the 19 was getting tight and coming up the racetrack into the 9. But it's like those cars will get glued together when they take off tight like that, and that's probably what happened to the 19 car, and the 9 just couldn't get out of the middle. And the 45 had no idea of the whole scenario with a big run of steam up on the outside. But I hate that car turned over. I still think that's a product of the depth of the grass and the way that grass is lipped up onto that quarter mile. Yeah. We saw that at Daytona. I wish that they would standardize some sort of, I guess, quality of what the infield and height control of the grass and those lips, especially when you have those lips that lead into asphalt like that.
Yep.
And because that's really what got that car up in the air and up off the ground is when the car came out of the grass up onto the asphalt that turned the car over. So glad Tyler Reddick's okay.
Yeah. So, but Tyler Reddick now 30 points below the line, which I don't think we were anticipating that leaving Vegas necessarily.
No. And first off, glad he's okay. And that wreck could have been a lot worse because Brad Keselowski, we didn't have in the rest of our video, but Brad Keselowski's coming back onto the racetrack head first in the middle of the pack. And I think it was Hendrick and Blaney just barely were able to avoid, but Blaney ended up, I think it broke his toe link. But with Reddick, now a lot of pressure's on this weekend at Homestead.
It's a shot.
It's because like now we talked about it before, like this round is a round about winning. You got to go win. Now it's undeniable. Like you pretty much have to win. And if you go in thinking that someone's going to make a mistake, you might as well just not even show up. So you got to go win it.
And I think with the points gap that these guys have, I mean, it's definitely a win scenario. Yep. And I don't see Tyler Reddick. He's not winning at Martinsville. So this is his shot to get to the championship four. Yep. He's got to go win Homestead and get himself in a position to do that. And if he does that, then that really mixes the points up because of the guys that you would put out. Right now you have a 27-point gap from 4th to 5th, from the 24 to the 11. Yep. So, if Tyler Reddick goes and puts his name up there with Joey Logano and wins the race at Homestead, that's going to really mix things up for the guys that are in there right now. And
you had a deeper look at the points. And Tyler Reddick, we were talking amongst the three of us, hasn't really scored that many.
No, let's remember, there's a lot more to race for here than just getting into the championship four. There are a lot of different agendas at this point in the season that you have to remember. And you have to remember these as a driver, a crew chief, and a team owner, because the higher that you finish in those points, the more valuable your charter becomes, you have a 3-year average of how you're paid. And so when you look at all that and you want that value to be as high as possible, well, finishing in the points is how that value is measured. So, right now, 5th in the points, if it were to end right now with the way that the season resets, because let's remember, when you get eliminated, you all go back into just collecting championship points throughout the playoffs from all 16 drivers. If you're in the final 4, you're going to finish in the top 4 in points. However you finish at Phoenix, that's how you finish in the points. Right. But from there back, it's an accumulation of what you did throughout all the playoffs once you're eliminated. So right now, if you take your top 4, it'd be the 22 who won. You've got the 20, 24, and 5. That's your championship 4 right now. The 5th place in points would be the 48 car of Alex Bowman. So, you wouldn't think that based upon everything that happened last week. Well, he's not in the championship 8. Well, that's not how this works. So, it'd be the 48, the 9, the 11, the 12, the 19, and then the 45. So that tells you how kind of 45 has been fast, but he's definitely had a lot of races where he hasn't finished well.
Yeah, that's a little insult to injury for the 48 too. Like they have done everything, and then they showed up again at Vegas. Like they're gonna keep showing up. Probably by the time we're done with Phoenix, we're gonna look at it, and they'll probably be the best of the rest. And there's something to be said for being the best of the rest because there's money involved, and for the owners and for the teams. So there's value.
Yeah,
in that.
Yeah, and there is value in that, and I think it also is going to add a little salt in that wound as they go through the end of the season, knowing that they may have possibly had a chance to win a championship because of the speed that they've had.
But that's a good reminder of like the weight of what these points actually mean in the bigger picture as well. So speaking of the points, Denny Hamlin, 27 below the line. I want to talk about him for a minute because he said after the race, we're just not as strong as we were at the beginning of the year, also not clean execution-wise. So are you just continuing to see the trend of the 11 happening that we've been talking about for weeks? I
think so. And I think that we also get it confirmed every week because Denny kind of confirms everything that we say. But I even like this pit stop right there, right? Like you can see the orange line on the ground. I mean, that's 4 or 5 feet from where you're supposed to stop. There's nobody in front of you on this particular pit stop. You see the 3 go around 2 stalls in front of him, and we heard Chris Gabehart address this because Denny did that a couple times, but. And the only reason I point this particular part of what we're seeing right here out, because you talk about being a little bit out of sync, and sometimes when you're just out of sync, all those little details start to add up into one thing after another. Obviously, that's not leaving the tire loose that got left loose on this particular pit stop, and have to, I don't think it was this stop, but he had to back up on one of them for the same scenario to tighten the left rear tire. Yep. But it just doesn't seem like they're hitting on all 8 cylinders to be able to capitalize on everything. And a lot of that is just for whatever reason. It could be a number of things, right? It could be all the things that are happening outside the world for Denny. It could be that the cars are not as fast, but they're definitely not as good as they were at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's the same thing we've been seeing since the playoffs started. And if anyone
like a switch.
Yeah, if anyone thought that there was going to be a switch flip back.
They need to find it and turn it off.
Like they just haven't and I don't know if their processes have changed. Like I feel like they're pretty solid in their processes. The way Chris operates the team, like it's just not it.
It's not clicking.
And it's not clicking. And a lot of times it just comes down. A lot of times it's the driver. Like if he's off, then everything's going to be off. And,
well, if the driver's off, the rest of it is going to be off because it's just all that information starts with the driver, right? Like it's all those little details that come with getting the car right and making sure that everything functions correctly, with getting the last little pieces out of everything starts in the middle of the week. And look, I mean, Denny works hard and does all the things that he's supposed to, but you got to be able to capitalize on those things day after day after day. And it's just since the playoffs have started, they just hadn't been able to put all the pieces together to get all the speed out of the car. And I don't think they'll go to Homestead and win. I think his only shot to get in the playoffs is to win Martinsville.
You guys remember Austin Powers, that movie when they sucked out his mojo and he was just like off and like, that's what it looks like. It looks like someone sucked Denny's mojo out.
Oh, jeez.
And I think it all started, it seemed like it all started at Atlanta with the charter talk, and then it's kind of evolved all into what it has with today. But whatever has happened, it just it just hasn't been the 11-car team that we saw at the beginning of the year.
Well, because there's no way that pending lawsuit is not a distraction of sorts, because they're going through all of that legal.
Yeah, and Denny's been so good at compartmentalizing everything and being able to put all that aside. But it seems like, when you look at Vegas, you've got the other 3 cars. They ran really good all day. They were fast and up front, and that 11 was just never at the front.
Okay, so that was how Las Vegas went. You guys have been referencing it multiple times now. The next track we're headed to is Miami, another 1.5 mile racetrack.
It's just not another 1.5 mile racetrack.
Favorite.
Miss Vincie.
Let me talk to you.
Police officer.
Not another 1.5 mile racetrack.
So
it's a 1.5 mile in length. But
okay, 1.5 mile in length. I didn't mean it like that. But go ahead and tell me why it's not.
Homestead is, I hope at some point we start cycling these championship races from Phoenix to Homestead, even if it's just those two racetracks. What a great cycle of events that we could go back and forth on to have two championship tracks. And I really hope that we get back to that, because I think that Homestead is just such a unique place. You have to run up against the wall in 3 and 4. You have some options in 1 and 2. Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick, they're super good at putting their car up against the fence and making speed. But this racetrack is worn out. It's very line sensitive up against that wall. And this next gen car is a little more forgiving with the wall, as long as you don't break the toe link. As long as you don't hit it hard enough to break the toe link. So you can be a little bit more aggressive in being able to get up there and rub against the wall. But in 1 and 2, you can run the bottom of the racetrack. I think it's detrimental to the right rear tire on this car with the transaxle and everything that happens in the back of this vehicle compared to the old car. So you can run all over the racetrack in 1 and 2, but at some point it's going to cycle to the top of the racetrack, being the dominant lane on both ends if you're going to keep up with Larson and Reddick. So I think as we go here, I think Larson, Reddick, and Bell will be the guys that'll probably be good. But at this point, does it matter who the best is or the fastest is? Because it seems like week after week we see these guys shoot themselves in the foot, and year after year we see the playoffs. We see the playoffs do this to drivers and teams and scenarios, and so it's not abnormal. But watching it from this side of the fence and watching it week after week, it just like, man, Joey Logano's the guy that's just shot himself in the foot the least.
Yeah, that's true.
My Homestead, that place is awesome. Mm-hmm. It's a great race to watch. It's a great race to be at. So I hope there's a lot of fans out there. I do like your idea, Kev Bob, of switching those two championship races. Yeah. Kind of rotating them a little bit, because you kind of get into a little bit of an echo chamber when you get the same thing over and over, even though the fans of Phoenix deserve it because they show up and they pack that place out in the spring and in the fall. But I think it's important for competition to keep changing and changing.
It's just like the Super Bowl. You know, you go to a different city and let them experience it. I think that would 100%. Be nice.
And I think it's good for the competitors and the racing as a whole. And if we're going to change the playoffs, we change the races in the playoffs all the time, so we should change that last one.
I think if we're going to get on this subject, I think you could even add Las Vegas in there into that rotation.
That would be really cool.
I think
actually,
if you had 3, do you need more than 3 in that rotation? If you had Las Vegas, Phoenix, Homestead. That rotated that championship race, I think if you every 3 years you went to those locations and said, because you have to take in the account of weather. Right. In November. Right. So there's just not many places that you can go.
That's the biggest thing about all of this.
That's right.
Too, is the weather
you want the weather to be good, but I'd love to see Las Vegas Motor Speedway have a championship race. What a great city to be able to
cap it off.
Host the championship race. I'm not saying anything against Phoenix. I think Phoenix has done a great job. I think Homestead just always had that feel of just it felt different at Homestead than it does at Phoenix, and I think Phoenix has a different vibe than Homestead had, and there's good from both. But I think if you had the anticipation of that rotation every 3 years from different racetracks, and surely SMI and ISC could work out. Well, I have the championship race this year, so maybe ISC could take the All-Star race, and we could mix the All-Star race up. So I'd love to see the All-Star race or the championship race go to those 3 racetracks and be able to mix that up with a rotation year after year.
It's a good brainstorming session here, guys, about that.
We can fix a lot of problems right here in the
That's right.
podcast studio.
I can usually tell how you feel about a track if you're a big fan of it. And it seems like this one in particular you liked. I was looking at your numbers too. You obviously won at Homestead. A lot of top 5s. I think one year you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. Like it just a whole stretch in the top 5. So you liked racing there?
Homestead, it's from a driver's standpoint, you can make a difference. Okay. And it's challenging. and it changes constantly because of, the way that the sun will go there. And when the race starts, the sun will go down in 1 and 2. So the first thing that'll happen is that the shadows will start to come over the walls in 1 and 2, but it also will point the sun right at 3 and 4. So 3 and 4 becomes extremely difficult, but usually your handling conditions start to switch because of the shadow in 1 and 2. And it starts to give you these options of you want to start moving up to the top of the racetrack when those shadows start to get creeping over the wall, because you'll get like 2 feet of shadow up off the wall. And it'll start cooling that racetrack up there, and it'll start gaining grip. And then as the whole corner shadows, then you can start moving back around through 1 and 2. But nothing ever really changes in 3 and 4. You'll be able to run a few laps on that top seam or on the bottom in 3 and 4. But if you run the bottom in 3 and 4, it's going to really tear up the tires. And so from a driver's standpoint, you have a lot of options. You have a lot of challenges. You have every single lap it changes, and you got to pay attention to the conditions and the way that the entries and exits are built at Homestead were built for a flat racetrack, completely flat.
So the track
used to be flat.
Yeah, for the new fans, track was flat. It was kind of built off of Indy, right? Was that kind of the thought process?
Well, that was the first
iteration
shape,
right?
Then they knocked that one down.
Yeah.
And then they made it into the flat shape that it is. And then they added the progressive banking in like 2006, I think.
Yeah.
So this racetrack has flat entries and exits, and the way that the banking ramps up and out of the corners, in and out of the corners, is just completely different than any other 1.5 mile racetrack. And a lot of our other 1.5 mile racetracks are D-shaped, and this one is a true oval.
Yeah.
So it just has these unique entrances and exits to the corners that no other 1.5 mile has, added with really worn out surface.
Like, don't you love listening to his analysis sometimes? Yeah. Just like sitting there fascinated. This is why he corrected me on the 1.5 mile thing so quickly, because of that.
Yeah, it's like riding a roller coaster when you go in there.
And it also has and we saw Kyle Larson get in trouble with this last year. It has a very abrupt entry into pit road because they used to use the access lane off of turn 3 and had a lot of trouble with how do we officiate this. So they just said, okay, well, you just come off the banking in turn 4, and now it grabs the splitter really abruptly, and you have to kind of slam down on the ground. And we saw Larson try to get a little too much last year, locked up the tire and smashed straight into the sand barrel. So you definitely have to be careful, because the braking is not very good when the tires are that worn out, and they're not very good anyway when you're trying to go onto a flat surface from a bank surface like you have to do at Homestead in such a short amount of time. So there's a lot of challenges, and then you leave on the access road car where it's perfectly flat. And so you have to get everything that you can and not get in the dirt.
If this isn't giving you enough reasons to watch this race this weekend, I don't know what will, because the way you're describing it's going to be very interesting. So we've kind of identified who we think the favorites could be with Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick. Guys that are really feeling the pressure. Of course, Chase Elliott, he's pretty much in a must-win, and he said that more or less, being 53 back. You think he could be a guy that could win there?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that for me, the guy that is not in the playoffs, I think that this could be a place that Truex, could possibly put it all together. I just don't know that that's all, mentally there with the details that need to go into it from a week-to-week standpoint to beat the guys that are racing for a championship. With how focused on kill those guys are right now, it's going to be hard to beat those championship guys. The 9 has done a good job. Wrong place, wrong time this weekend. They've been very consistent. They've just been a little short on the speed that they need to go out and dominate a race.
Yeah.
And I just don't. I don't know that. I'm not saying it can't happen, because I've learned to not say it can't happen. I've learned to say that
it's a small possibility.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I've learned on this show. I've learned on this show that you don't want to say that this is absolutely the way that it's going to go, because there is nothing that goes absolutely the way that it's going to go in these races. There are no guarantees, but I don't think the 9's going to go out there and just dominate the race. I think you're going to have to go through the 5 and the 45 and the 20, because those guys are the 20's on kill.
Yep.
The 5 is just so good at Homestead, and the 45 is, he knows, he's got to know that this is his weekend. Now, when you look at points, those guys that are outside, I mean, the 45 he could make some points up by winning stages and
Right.
things at this particular racetrack with what I think he should be able to do at this racetrack as far as speed and performance. But I think they got to win. I think they got to win because they're not going to win Martinsville.
Now, another driver below the line, former champion Ryan Blaney.
Reigning champion.
And we didn't really talk about him too much. They had issues this weekend right out of the gate, had to go to a backup car, all of that. But do you think that this could be a place where he makes some noise?
I do. Not based off of the overall speed that they've had throughout the year, right? They've been there, but not like dominating speed on mile and a half. But last year, just based on what he's done the last couple of years, he's been really fast the last couple of years. And I think that this place is good for him and good for that team. So we'll see how that works. I mean, he won Martinsville to get in and win the championship last year. So he also has that. So to Kevin's point, like if they just are there and are able to capitalize on stage points and some people have problems, they'll be in a really good situation for Martinsville. If they could get their point, what are they right now, 47? So, it's a huge gap, but let's say that they can make up 20 and just make it interesting from a point standpoint going into Martinsville, they're still going to have to win, but at least they're making it a little bit more pressure.
Yeah, and the tough part about a round of 8 like this, you just never know who's going to hit it because all 8 of these guys,
they're all
hit it.
good.
They're all good. They can all put it together to go out there and dominate a race. So it wouldn't surprise me if any of them showed up and said,
Here we are.
Here we are this week. But I don't. Homestead is so unique.
Yeah.
I think that you can point out your favorites a little easier than most weeks. But at Martinsville, you talk about Blaney and you talk about Denny Hamlin. I don't see Tyler Reddick being in the mix at Martinsville based upon past history, but Chase Elliott could go to Martinsville and do the same thing. So it's all going to be who hits it in these next 2 weeks at one of these races, because I think they all know that they need to win. And I think that I don't know that there's anybody outside of the playoffs that's going to beat some of these playoff guys this week, except for, Truex. But I just don't know. He's been pretty good at Homestead, but I just don't know mentally that it's all there.
Now, one driver who is outside the playoffs is Alex Bowman, and we didn't really get to finish this story because we were in the midst of finding out whether or not they were going to continue on or not. Now we know they decided not to appeal the penalty. That was the decision by Hendrick Motorsports. Were you surprised that they didn't want to appeal it?
I was surprised, but it also told me that they were guilty, right? And I think at that point, when you know that you don't have a leg to stand on, you just have to kind of go and say, okay, well, we messed up. And I love the fact that Jeff Gordon just said, hey, we cut it too close and we put ourselves out there and that's it. And that was kind of the end of the story. And I think that as you go through and you listen to everything that happened, it sounded like they rolled through right on the number. And you get a tolerance after the race, and that number was lower than it was NASCAR was giving the teams and gives the teams every week. They go back and they give you the opportunity to fill your car up with oil, and they give you the opportunity to put your water back in there, and so I think it's a tough calculation, but I think that when you put yourself in those positions of cutting it that close, you have to know the consequences, and this consequence was pretty big.
Alex Bowman threw his phone in the pool when he heard the news. Did you see that?
Yeah, he said he threw his phone. He got the call through the phone in the pool,
and it, like emergency dialed.
It hit the bottom of the pool.
It thought he was in a car wreck,
and it called 911. And so, because iPhones are waterproof, like it dialed out, but there's no service in the bottom of the pool.
Guess
so
I can't blame him.
Call it, but it sent like 911.
So think about it from Alex's standpoint, though, right? Like when you think about it from Alex's standpoint, what a year.
Yeah.
With talking about losing his job, getting thrown out of the playoffs after you make the playoffs, and all the things that he's had to mentally go through. The guy's obviously pretty mentally tough because he went to Vegas this week and ran well,
showed up
and showed up and showed up to perform and did what he was supposed to do from his standpoint. So it's what a tough position to be in from a driver's standpoint, to have to deal with everything that he's dealt with this year and still go out on a racetrack and perform. Yeah,
and probably to feel like you're the fourth guy out of that stable, and everyone else, Chase is most popular driver. Larson is what people think of is the best driver in the world, and Byron wins perennially 5 races a year, and it's like someone's gonna be down on the totem pole, at least is what you feel like. And for him to step up all playoff long and them to be pushing it, like, you understand why they're pushing it. It just sucks because it's easy to, Monday morning, crew chief the thing, but like, I don't know if you really needed to push it that close because of how well you were running. I don't think
it's not a good mistake.
That wasn't a mistake. That it was an unforced error, I think, because you were good enough to probably give yourself a little bit more leeway. So.
Yeah, we'll have to see how Alex Bowman and the team fares the rest of the season. But now it's time for our favorite segment, as he always says, supposedly.
Yeah, well, you said it, so it must be true.
He says it's great.
You say it. I just have to go along with it.
Listen. America. Lend me your ear.
Hey, global. Remember the F1 people are pissed.
Oh, yeah.
Global. Hey,
world. Lend me your ear. Welcome to Mamba's Social Sips. And this week was interesting. There was a lot going on, and I kept seeing a lot of good ones. So maybe there's some stuff that popped up this week that'll come in next week. But I really wanted to start here because Hailie Deegan has re-risen on the scene in motorsports, and it is in the form of the Indy Next. And I like that for her. I'm glad that she's back in competition. I hope she finds success there. I know that the part of the reasons are, sponsorship and all these things are hard over here, and they're hard everywhere. But for her to get back in the car, pretty cool. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough transition.
Yeah.
Because it's a completely different car.
We've never seen it, I don't think, have we?
I don't know much about the Indy Next program and everything that goes with that. But, I'm glad that she's hopefully she's happy and being able to race and do something that she's enjoying. But, I think look, we can go back and talk about this scenario and the moment that she stepped out of that Toyota program here was kind of the end and turning point of the NASCAR piece of what Hailie Deegan does. And that doesn't mean, I thought that, she was in a great position to be successful while she was in that Toyota system. And as soon as she got out of that Toyota system and went into the situation that she got in with Ford, it spiraled out of control in the wrong direction. So hopefully she gets a fresh restart over there.
Yeah. KV, you know who's also excited about it? Mario
Andretti. I know.
Mario
that's
Andretti sent her a tweet. He said, "Welcome to heaven. Welcome to heaven, Hailie. You'll love it." And
Is it heaven? Like what makes it heaven?
I think it just, Indianapolis and IndyCar and,
What is ours
Mario.
then? Hell? What do we?
Yeah.
Where are we?
Sometimes.
I'm just kidding. Our social guy just gave me a look. That was a joke. We love it here. It is heaven.
No. And I think it's cool that Mario gave her a tweet. So
Mario is always a huge supporter of everything racing. And I think, I joke about his reference right there, but I think it's, when you look at the Indy 500 and everything that comes with the Indy 500, that is an experience from the open wheel side of it that hopefully I get to experience this year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, why is that, Kevin?
Well, I mean, I don't have anything to do that weekend, I would love to experience what heaven might be like.
Yeah, IndyCar on Fox. It's
on Fox, that's right.
Looking forward to it. All right. And now, I love that this guy's returning too.
Yes.
My guy, Bubba Pollard.
Oh.
Redneck Jesus is back in NASCAR, and he's running his 26 number because he's with Sam Hunt, who owns the 26 car in the Xfinity Series. So he's coming back to race at Martinsville. We saw what he did at Richmond, had a really good run there, kind of stepped on it a little bit in qualifying, rebounded. I think that if you gave this guy just a short track schedule in Xfinity, he would win multiple races in its season. What say you, Unc?
I don't know. I think that he would do a good job. I think he's going to do, what he probably did at Richmond. I think that when you get into these scenarios and don't race every week, it becomes difficult when you're not in the same car with the progression that goes with that particular division on a week-to-week basis. It becomes hard to be competitive with the guys that do it week after week after week. I think Bubba's short track background is going to make him more comfortable than he would be at all the bigger racetracks for sure. But to your question of the short tracks, I think that if he got to do that, I don't know how many short track races.
Say he does it 8 times,
7 or 8 times a year. I think he would be competitive like he was at Richmond. I don't know that this car is as competitive as the Junior Motorsports car. That's going to be the issue that you have with this particular car. Yeah, it's got a cool number and it's the same as his late model, but it's not going to be as fast as the Junior Motorsports car.
Did you just take the buzz out of your sip?
No.
There's a buzz.
I still think
It was
it's
a little
great.
bit of a bite.
Hey, the fact that Bubba Pollard is going to get a shot in an Xfinity car at a short track is great for short track racing.
Yeah.
And
That is.
whether it's I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but that 26 car isn't going to run as fast as the Junior Motorsports car.
That's fair. Yeah.
No,
I'm-
maybe
Hey,
because
reality is a real thing.
the reality
Reality is a real thing.
We need to put that on a
You have to
t-shirt.
accept it.
it on a
Reality
t-shirt,
is a
America.
real
Reality
thing,
is a real
everybody.
thing.
All right.
Oh man, I'm looking forward.
There's
to
a difference between being optimistic and realistic.
that's fair.
I tell my crowd that
Another
all the
one.
time. There's it's a drastic difference.
I love these Harvick-isms. We need to start writing them down.
Yeah, they're a little simpler than the Squireisms, but we'll write them down either way.
Optimistic and realistic are
Not mutually exclusive.
they are drastically different.
And now we got our little sub to the Mamba Sips. It's the Burnout. Joey Logano always has a good Burnout.
Yes, he does.
This one is not as good as the one at North Wilkesboro. It's still exciting, a lot of smoke. He always does this thing where he just kind of keeps doing 360s all the way down the front stretch.
And then he burns it down.
And then he blows the tires out.
It was the back tires were not happy. At one point, it would hardly move because they were either completely worn out or so hot that they wouldn't function anymore. But Logano's, they always have high RPM.
Yeah.
They got that grit and sound to that high RPM that goes with the Burnout. Watch the car barely move right here.
I thought he got stuck, and Kevin's like, no, there's just no more rubber left on the tires.
But
pretty good.
Logano's are always right up there at the top with the best ones.
So
He's notorious for pretty good ones.
yeah, where are you pointing at? What are you giving it?
I'm gonna give it a B plus.
Oh,
B plus. I'm
we
saying
haven't
that's
had a
probably
B plus in a while.
Probably like a 7.6, 7.7.
Yeah, the Olympics
Okay.
are over though,
Yeah.
so we're just going back to school.
It's going back.
Back
That's
to
all.
school.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us at Mamba Sips.
Great job.
Very good.
Hey, I appreciate
Good
it.
job, Mamba.
Got
Thanks
good
for
ones coming
carrying
next
this
Did you
show.
learn anything at the hockey game this weekend?
Oh.
I learned that
Well, I guess tell them you took my spot at the hockey game. We had our season
Yeah.
opener
First of
for
all-
the Charlotte Checkers this weekend.
yeah,
Mama took my place with Delana and Piper at
Yeah.
the game while we were in Vegas racing.
yeah,
Keelan
and,
I.
and Piper brought me a new bracelet. So
What's it
thanks,
say?
Piper. It says Chief Hype on it.
Oh,
Chief Hype.
that is so cute.
Yeah, she said she doesn't like the officer part, so she wasn't putting it in.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's
Chief
awesome.
Hype. So no, so what I learned at the hockey
See any
game,
fights?
there was fights every like 45 seconds.
Really?
Yeah, those guys
Wow.
were mad. And
I've
I think
never been.
the Checkers, our team that's the most winningest team in Charlotte.
Yeah.
is the Checkers. Like they actually
Wow.
went hang banners. So we were up like 6-1 or something. And I think the other team was just fed up with getting their asses kicked.
Can we do a happy hour outing to the hockey?
We can go to the hockey game anytime.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Yeah.
could film it.
Yeah. It'll be a good time.
Do some behind the scenes
Yeah.
videos to drop in this podcast.
Place is freaking awesome.
People are
Okay.
probably like, why are we talking about the Charlotte?
Well, it's
Checkers.
because Kevin owns part of them and they're here local.
Yeah.
That's right.
There you go.
yeah,
Kevin owns them.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big deal.
that's why I talk about the FC because he gives
Yeah.
me his tickets to the FC
There
game.
you
Which
go.
they got a playoff game, home playoff game.
Ooh.
Let's go Charlotte FC.
There you go. All right. Lots of plugs for the Charlotte sports teams here. Well, this has been a fun show, guys. It's time now to pick who we believe will win out at Homestead this weekend. Kevin?
You go first.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm going
because-
Reddick because I just think he needs a redemption and he could do it. We've talked about
I'm
it
gonna
the
keep
whole
riding
show.
that- I'm going to keep riding that Larson
He's
train.
gonna ride the.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. 2 weeks in a row, eh?
Yeah,
gonna run it all
worked
the way
out
to
well
the
for me
championship.
last week, but it seems like every time they have a terrible week, they have a great week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you have to pick Denny next week because he's your championship pick.
That's his only hope.
Okay, so we already know who he's picking.
Hey, look at this particular point. I mean, Logano was out, back in. Now he's in the championship 4. Levin switches it on at Martinsville and goes to Phoenix
Yeah.
and wins the championship.
Things
Just like
change
that.
on a dime.
Just
I mean,
like
it could switch that fast.
Okay. I am going with Sir William Byron.
Okay, Sir William.
Sir William, they've they haven't flipped a switch, but they've turned a corner.
Consistent.
They've been really consistent and consistently
They were
fast.
solid yesterday.
And he's
One thing I liked about this weekend is just the the tone of how they're talking to each other on the radio, and we heard this in the last round. We covered this, but just how he and Rudy are communicating seems back to normal.
Back to where.
And the thing that I heard over the radio about the 24 yesterday was just talking about his car not driving correctly. Still got a decent day out of it.
Yeah, he was very complimentary of the team getting that car where it needed to be throughout the course of the race.
I think that's really important. If you can, if you know you're bad, and then you are able to make those gains by the end of this, by the end of the second stage, he was like, "No, this thing's on rail." That's good.
He's now 27 up on the line. So you have a cool interview this week, by the way.
I do.
Tell us about it.
We're fortunate to have Tony Stewart.
Ooh.
Smoke Daddy
came on the show. We sent him all the way to L.A. so he can talk to us in L.A. But it's kind of ironic that we did the interview, and then Smoke was able to. He was in Lake Havasu over the weekend and came out to watch Keelan and I race while we were in Las Vegas. So it's great to be able to go watch Tony do what he has been doing with the NHRA stuff, and Tony come out and watch Keelan and I doing what we're doing in post Cup life. I know everything is coming to an end with Stewart-Haas Racing, so it's interesting to hear his comments and just where he's at mentally and with everything that's happening at Stewart-Haas Racing. But I love where Tony's at personally. Obviously, getting ready to be a dad. Being in the relief mode for his wife, driving the top fuel car. But he just seems really happy, and I think from a friend's standpoint, seeing your friends happy is cool. What you really want to see. So great interview with Tony.
Looking forward to that conversation for sure. All right. Well, that does it for this episode 67 of Happy Hour. Make sure you continue to subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Rate the show 5 stars, leave a review, and we will see all of you after